For our next session, we have an expert who's calling in remotely from Germany. For the last session, I've been talking a lot about stuff that I didn't know much about, but here we have somebody who does know what he's talking about. And so Hadi will be talking about Generative AI Hub, BTP, and a lot of the core foundational services that you're able to leverage when it comes to large language models. So we turn it over to Hadi to take it away.
Many thanks. So also from my side, hello everyone. Happy to join you here remotely to this session. And yeah, let me quickly jump into the slides that we have brought with me. I understood that in the earlier session, you also heard from Ted some standard topics around foundational models and what the content is, what you can do with foundational models. Here, I don't want to spend so much time here. The only thing that is currently really interesting in the market is obviously that the barrier is really lowered down for non-technical users to interact with AI, with LLMs or other foundational models. And this is obviously why we have such a big trend in Gen AI currently, what we see across the whole industry and the market. And one thing that I want to focus here on this slide is the adaptation layer that you see in the middle here, where we talk about prompt engineering, embeddings, but also fine-tuning. And why so important? Because we believe, and this is my belief also is shared across the industry, is that with prompt engineering and embedding, we can cover a lot of use cases already. Like studies show us like 80 or 90% of most use cases out there will be covered by good prompt engineering and embedding. And for those that are really specific and create a high value, there obviously you want to introduce fine-tuning. And you will later understand why I wanted to introduce with this layer, with this adaptation layer, because I will touch on each of these sections a bit in detail, how we at SAP looks at it. So that's the overall introduction with foundational models. And now to the overall storyline. Maybe I quickly jump over to the next slide, which is this slide. I know that you saw this already by my colleague Ted. I don't want to spend so much time on this. It's important that you understand we have Joule there. We have embedded AI capabilities in the middle layer, and the AI Foundation. And the AI Foundation here really acts as the backbone or the technology layer for all the things that we have above, being a Joule or being it the embedded AI capabilities in BTP or the other solution areas here. And if we double click now on the AI Foundation, and I also saw earlier that you already saw also this slide, let's talk about the whole complete set of services that we are providing to our AI developers on BTP. And here I spent a bit of time. First of all, and this is the most important thing, is we are using this for ourselves, right? You saw also in the earlier slide, and this is not just saying, it's real fact and real business, you could say. And we are building this always in the mind of providing this for our own solution, for our own LOB applications, but also in mind for BTP applications in context with SAP data and SAP processes. So that's always the driving factor. And when we look here, you see the upper layer, the application and extension layer. This is obviously coming from the LOB applications like Ariba, SuccessFactors, S4, and so on. But on the other hand side, for customers and partners, obviously the idea is here also to build their own applications, build their own extensions, the whole concept of clean core principle, and have a side-by-side scenario where you have your load and all the Gen AI story in BTP, but still connect to your source system, being an S4 or so. So that's the whole story around this. And for this, we have this complete set of services that you see here. And if I again double click on it, we see it a bit more in detail, what exactly we have in this bag of tools, let's call it. We have obviously document processing with some services that we have on BTP. We have recommendations with machine translation. We have management of generative AI. We have workload management, but also business data and context here. So to really give the typical AI developer or developer in BTP a way to interact with the technologies that we anyhow use for ourselves so that they can leverage this then to build their applications or extend their applications or. Yeah. And if you now dig deeper into it a bit, we have generative AI management. And just a side note, you see here, we don't mention any product names because we are here really focusing on this slide only on the capabilities, right? That's why there's no name, SAP brand also in it. Bear with me, but we will jump on the product side also. This should be grounded. So if we go into the middle layer here, all to business data and context, right? Data management is really important for AI, vector engine for grounding and creating embeddings, as we saw in the earlier slide, is important. There we are thinking about vector engines, right? So, and this all things are running obviously on foundation models, right? We saw it earlier. And here we have some distinction that I would want to quickly briefly touch on. I skipped the first box here you see here. I would jump to the hosted and remote model. And here, just to understand what is the strategy and our overall generative AI strategy is to not opt into one specific vendor or going into one direction because the market is currently so dynamic. Like each second week or even every week, there's a complete new change. There's a new best model, new set of rules, new playbook, whatever what comes out, which is changing constantly the market, and it's quite hard to build on top of this and make something enterprise ready for the next 2 to 5 years without ever changing the architecture and so on. And for this, we said we need to have a more abstraction layer here for us ourselves, but also for our customers and partners to interact with different flavors. And here we have hosted. Hosted in this case means that we as SAP take over the responsibility to host the model. All responsibility lies with us. Makes it easier, obviously, on your side not to interact with it and maintain this. And also from data perspective, also it's in a bit more secure way. But obviously, with the remote topic, we have here also a lot of legal frameworks and so on. I will briefly touch on that also to make sure that also the remote is as safe as the hosted one. So just to give you an idea what we mean here. And with fine tuning, I guess I will later touch on that. And just one remark here. Built by SAP is never referring to building a general foundational model. You can refer something like to GPT-4. That's not our intent. That's not what we mean here by built by SAP. When we talk about built by SAP foundation models, it's always regarding specific SAP data, specific SAP process, specific SAP LLMs. In this case, just to get an understanding what we're talking here, you might think about which is obvious one is like ABAP LLM, right? We as SAP, ABAP, okay, it's like it fits perfectly together, right? Or documentation for ABAP or some HANA specific things. So all those areas we are currently looking at, and eventually we will also introduce then and build by SAP models. Even started from scratch and we did the full tuning, or build on top of a community model and then fine-tune in a way that we can use it and also provide this then via the same layer, right? So overall, and then just one small remark here, foundation model fits also into the AI services. So if you again see the upper layer, document processing can also really benefit if you include generative AI capabilities into it. Recommendations, right? Understanding semantics, understanding text overall is hugely yeah, and an LLM can really do this task really great. So as you see here, the foundation here really fits into all the above layers that you see here. And this is also how then this layer and then all the LOBs and all the Joule that you saw earlier will fit also on top of that. So that's the overall set the scene slides, let's say, to before we jump into the actual product. And here I would then jump to the Generative AI Hub, as we announced at TechEd, as a capability across those two products. And I briefly touch on this in the slide to make it a bit more digestible and understandable for you. And for here, let me first start with the overall clear guidance here. Generative AI Hub don't have an SAP as prefix, which means it's not a product. It's a product capability that we announced to make it easier to have, when we talk about all these things that you see in the slide, that we can have one name for it to name it, because otherwise it would be quite hard to understand when we talk about generative AI in general. And how this ties to two products that we have here on the side. It's basically SAP AI Core and SAP AI Launchpad. And we now will talk about the inner things of Generative AI Hub. But just one thing, bear with me. Joule or the applications on top of that, it's all sit on generative AI. So all the generative AI use cases you might saw in the news by SAP, they are eventually using Generative AI Hub in the background, right? So all the use cases that is already in live and will come also in the next quarters for generative AI, all sitting all on generative AI. On the same hand, customers and partners started also now to collaborate with us, and they will also provide more and more their own customized version of this, but all sitting again on the Generative AI Hub. So that's the upper layer. But now let's do the dive in what exactly means Generative AI Hub, right? So we have on the top layer the toolset layer, which we what it means. How do you interact with this? What we provided is a playground. And in this case, you can see the playground as from two sides, or it's one medal and there's two sides of the medal. One is that you, as a developer, just interact with the UI and can play around like others also do and use this to interact with an LLM. But on the other hand side, and this is quite important, is that we provide the playground also in an enterprise way so that you can enable your developers, your employees to use the playground in a safe way, a compliant way. What does this mean exactly? And let me briefly touch on that. We at SAP started early last year to provide an internal playground to all our employees. So everyone had access, right? And it was a really fast delivered HTML web UI. But you could interact with us. And what we saw is even the user experience was not so great. A lot of our employees interacted with us because they wanted to understand, they wanted to interact with the new technology and to make their life better, ultimately their lives better, because they using the A1 LLM to summarize emails or create a template for an email or do other things, making some marketing plans, having ideas for some other plans. So all the things that you would do in an enterprise way, you get there, right? Developers obviously create and code and other documentation, and so on. So a lot of use cases we saw, and the nice beauty of this was when we provided this to all our employees is that the rate of innovation increased hugely. Yeah, we had use cases for AI or Gen AI in a pipeline that we didn't came up. It was always this top-down approach that we had. Yeah, we need to have AI use cases where what can we do and so on and so on. This time it was the other way around. We provided this and we had a huge boost of new use cases coming in daily, and it's still currently the case. And with the correct guidance, we also could push much faster into use cases and productive use cases. So when you are coming from the traditional or narrow called, and sometimes they call it narrow AI world, yeah, you know that one project going into production was around 6 to 12 months until it realized. And this was always a gap between POC and pushing this to production. But we see now with this whole enablement of the workforce, a much faster interaction and much faster into production. So time to production is much decreased. And what we thought it is there will be a lot of other companies facing the same struggle, maybe not maybe having the means to provide a safe environment for their employees. So we just took the version internal one and make it more productive ready to share it then with our customers. So long story short, it's two sides of one medal. It's not just to interact with LLM, but you can also provide this to your employees and hugely drive innovation. That's our belief. On the other hand, we see here libraries and SDKs. That's obviously how to interact as a developer with the back end and develop your application, right? That's normal stuff that should be supported, and I will briefly also cover this. And now, if you look from the functionality, what we have on in the toolset side, we have prompt engineering here, because that's the first interaction we had. We saw earlier the adaptation slide, right? Prompt engineering is really important. We need to introduce also advanced prompt engineering over the course of this year to factor in all the needs that developers need for this whole new world and technology. On the other hand, prompt management is also to make just the life easier, right? You maybe want to save your prompts, you want do some versioning on top of that, and so on and so on. So that's the prompt management perspective. And now to looking into the future, prompt registry obviously is a concept that we are currently looking at to make also available for developers a way to interact in runtime, in production with their prompts, do lifecycle management and across of that, and update basically that. And you want to do this in a central place. That's why we have it here as marked as star, that we're looking into that. So that's the toolset layer. I spent maybe more time that, but just for me, it was important to convey this message here in the round. So now if you now look more on the two layers below, which is trust and control and foundational model access, is the backend, right? So what do we have here? So one thing, first thing first is the inference engine, right? When we have a lot of foundational models, LLMs, we need to have a good inference engine, and there we're also looking in the open world space, open source space, but also in the commercial space. And obviously, we need to see that here we are good and also serving all enterprise needs that we see from our side, but also customers. And then you see, if we jump over multi-tenancy, security, data privacy, that's all factors that we see as important as an enterprise provider here, because again, we are not doing this just for our customers and partners, but we're using it ourselves. So we have the same and even maybe more requirements to our own technology than our partners and customers. And then looking again into the future, what are topics that currently the whole market is looking at? That's not even an SAP specific, is content filtering, content safety. How do you mitigate if an LLM provides you inappropriate response, and so on and so on. So that's the content moderation. And there currently we're also looking into how we can provide this in which way, how safety can it be, and so on and so on. So all those topics that are related to this. And then towards and grounding here is also mentioned here. Obviously, grounding is really important, and I will briefly touch on that also later. And then in looking into towards the end of the year is obviously this whole concept of plugins, agents, autonomous agents talk to each other, do this stuff on API level, so that you just define the automation and they are doing it in the background, right? So that's something that I at least foresee as really interesting, and really I saw at least some demos and POCs that are really mind blowing. So I am really happy to see this also here, and that also we are working on this and want to shape this for BTP at all. Yeah. Then foundation model, I guess the build by SAP I covered already. I can skip that. Then build by partners. Obviously, we are having a partner strategy here, meaning that we are introducing more and more partners here. What we have already available is the models of Azure OpenAI here. And with one of the first open source model, we introduced Falcon 4DB. And there's also more and more coming towards Q1 and Q2 this year, where we have partnerships, but also we look actively in the open source world, what we can provide here as further options. And the custom topic here, I briefly want to mention because I get a lot of those requests and inquiries. What about fine tunings and so on? So here, my personal belief, and also this is shared again across SAP, but also to some extent across the whole industry, is that it's not sustainable, and it's also commercially not really sustainable to have everywhere Llama 2 models hosted, right? Customer A host their Llama 2 in one GPU. Customer B hosts their Llama 2 in some instance, and all of them need to pay a big money for the running costs, inference cost of that. The idea here is more coming also from open source world to leverage the concept of LoRa, meaning you have one base model and you have a lot of adapters on top of that. So, and each of these adapters are obviously customized and isolated, right? So, meaning you have one big base model that it's scalable, but on top of that, you have the customization as an adapter, and if you do that, you still achieve really great results, but don't need to pay so much for the base model to host it. And this is much more scalable in terms of you can have thousands of these adapters on top of one base model. And this is, for me at least, a more sustainable and from business value also much more valuable way to customize LLMs than just do a full fine-tuning. There might be some use cases that really needs full fine-tuning. Not saying about not against that, but for majority, let's say 98% or 95%, most are covered with prompt engineering, grounding, and the adaptive fine-tuning. So that's just also a hint for that. And now the maybe more interesting part about RAG and how would you do document search, document chatting with your document, and so on and so on. There we introduced HANA Cloud Vector Engine in TechEd last year, and here we have options for embeddings and similarity search or similarity function here directly in the same database that you might already own. Or just using the HANA Cloud Engine here to connect you with your business data, because that's the ultimate goal or the ultimate context that an LLM needs, right? I mean, one customer have specifics that the LLM don't know, and the next customer again. So you want to bring this in. And for that, we are collaborating here with the HANA Cloud colleagues to make a generative AI hub as close from the integration point to HANA Vector Engine as possible. For that, and this is just an outlook, we wait until HANA Cloud is available, which is by end of Q1, and then as a first step, we will bring an easy integration or high-level easy integration point into it, and later we deepen it even more, so it really feels like it's glued together. Because in a world where you want to quickly assess documents and then talk with your documents, it needs to happen really easy and fast, and you don't need to spend so much time on that. So overall, this is and I spent a lot of time on the slide, but I hope this painted at least a picture where we're heading to. And now to more on the high-level value proposition that we see here and discussed it also with the market here. So first, again, we see the tool set. Here we have the playground, we have the client, we have the libraries and SDK, right? Interacting with the API, that's clear. What you can do is here explore different models, different capabilities with the Gen AI. And obviously, ultimately experiment with this new technology, being it as an employee, as I mentioned in the earlier example from our internal playground, and ultimately also enhancing applications with generative AI. So those, I guess, those three value propositions are clear, right? Now, if you go to the next one, it gets more fuzzy and more interesting, maybe also to you. So one is the connectivity, right? We try to make it as easy as possible to easily connect to supported LLMs, but also during your lifecycle management of an application, easily switch to different other models that might even perform better or might be cheaper. Whatever your business need is, we want to cover this. And here we are always assessing the market in the LLM market and want to provide always the best suited model here. Not all models, because that's not our focus here. It's really more about the best suited models here. One other topic here, the acceleration, and this is also a topic which is important, is the what we did when we started this whole journey is to introduce a legal and commercial frameworks to set us up so that we are safe for ourselves, but also for our customers and partners. And what exactly this means. So first, in our legal framework is that obviously we are only processing data, meaning that we are not storing data, we are not saving data. Even in our contracts with our partners, we writing this down and discuss it with their legal team. And we have a dedicated team also on our side to check if any of the services that we have, there might be a human in the loop, which we don't want, right? It's no saving there. We don't want to save things. It's just data processing. And that's what we have. It's legal framework, just that our whole team is checking their terms and conditions and whatever, but also to check if we are compliant with all the regulatories and compliances that we have on our side. On the other hand, we have a commercial framework also in place, meaning how do we interact with those partners? How do we provide this then for us and also for our customers, right? To make, again, the life easy to our customers and partners and our LOBs. Because you want to focus mostly on the use case and providing value or making a business process more efficient, saving money on that and so on. Less on the whole legal commercial stuff and whom do I need to interact, which terms and condition and whatever need to read through and so on. So that's what we want to cover completely from SAP perspective. So you can really rely on this and reuse it basically. And the switch topic I also said already, right? You can easily switch then between models and make a use for that. Then to the inference part or the trust and control part here, obviously always, since we are doing this for ourselves, secure is really in place with embedded SAP security here. Also, as mentioned, is the legal framework and the commercial framework in place so that your applications, your data, and so on are still completely running safe, and data protection and data privacy are in place. Then with the HANA vector engine, as mentioned here, control model responses should be grounded, so context data is there, so that there's no hallucination of models and so on. And ultimately, we see a lot of nice use cases coming towards 2024 and 2025, where advanced capabilities are introduced into solutions or even in business applications. So make it much more seamless and much more easy during the work. And now you might ask, okay, yeah, we talked now a lot about technology. Well, what about the use cases, right? So here I can just share some of them, what you already might heard and saw, but just to share also in the sentiment that this is happening already. This is nothing that is maybe coming in 2 months or 5 months or so. Some of them are already developed and close to shipment or already shipped. So first one is the from the CX portfolio. There we have custom mails summarization and extraction of action items. That's something, as far as I understood, is either planned or already provided in Q1. So that's something that we also already can share. Then writing assistant, right? Success factors, huge use case. Job descriptions are generated, and you just look over it, and if it's fine, you click on it. It's such a huge time saver. That's already shipped and it's live. Interview questions creations, also currently a use case that the colleagues are working. Then question answering, the whole Joule information retrieval topic, right? Joule are integrated already in success factors. Now S4 is coming. So more and more this whole idea of having Joule across the whole portfolio is coming into or getting real. And last but not least, the whole code generation. So we announced SAP Build Code last year, and here also the automatic code and data model generation is in place. And I understood that the colleagues are on the good way to bring a GA by end of Q1. And also that is something that will be available then. So ultimately, if we now look high level again on this, is we have tool sets, we have access, we have trust, and ultimately it gives you a way to unlock generative AI for your business, as mentioned here in this high level slide. But I wouldn't stop here. I still have a live demo for you. So I'll quickly jump over to a real demo or real system. For this, give me 1 second. Where's my mouse? Here. So what I have here is my own BTP account, right? Give me 1 second. I need to again sign in. And what I set up here is the 2 products. One is the AI Core setup here. Hopefully this is large enough. Let me see. Yeah, I can also enlarge it so it's more visible for you on the screen. So what I'm launching here is the AI Launchpad, right? And here we have the portion of GenAI Hub here. And if I click to it, you see you are prompted with this user interface for, obviously it's more focused as of now for developers, but in the future, I guess we will also make it a bit easier also for developers, but also for other users, power users. And here it's just how you would interact with any playground, right? You go to choose your different model, you have different parameters for different models to select to, and then you just type in your message, what you want to ask the LLM, and then click on run. What we provided here, and this is just then the value proposition here, is obviously you have different models that you can select across the industry. Right. So as of now, it's only GPT 3.5 and GPT 4 and Falcon, but more and more comes during Q1 and Q2. I can't disclose it as of now because we are still in the phase to finalize it. But I can definitely for sure that say that this list will get more and more. And then the typical workflow is that you select something, you type in your message here, click on run and get your response, right? And this is, again, more during the design time. Once you're done with your final prompt, you obviously go into your productive environment or into your IDE like VS Code and include it there into whatever format you have, being it JSON or whatever you have there. So ultimately, that's the playground. And as you see, we have here a couple of functionality. We added here saving a prompt with a specific name, version, collection, and that's where the prompt manager comes into play. I have here one example that I earlier saved. So here, what I did at that time, and this is a real example, I just wanted to see how the GPT model provides me when I want to release a new product. What strategy is providing me? What do I need to look at? And as you see here, I asked here as a product manager that I am, how to release a product, right? And I get then some specifics by the GPT model. This is not grounded, obviously. If I want to be 100% sure, either I need to really sift through or I ground it on actual data that we have or it's available in the internet to really be sure that there's no hallucination happening. And then what I did here is to open this up again in the prompt editor and change the persona, which is here in this case product manager. I wanted to understand how would a solution manager look at it, right? To release a product. Are there maybe different things here? And that's what I did in one click, right? And then later on, I wanted to also understand, what does a marketing manager does? They have a different view, right? And this is, for me at least, and this is, I really use this, is even in my daily work, really great to have to understand different hats, different personas, how they think, how they tackle a problem. And that might be, I need to adjust certain things so that it works also for my colleagues so that we have a good, close collaboration here. And ultimately, now again, long story short, to the functionality of this UI, if I jump to the prompt editor here, I get all the information in the background are populated here. So I again can start where I'm selected. In this case, the old GPT model, I had a new deployment started, and I can start here with something else. I can add a new persona here, or completely adjust. It's not a product, it's a product capability or whatever, and then run again and save it, right? So that's the overall interaction that we have set as a first step towards this whole prompt engineering, prompt management section. Now, if you think now again more from the administration perspective, how would an admin provide this to their users or employees? We have here the section, and since I'm an admin in this tenant, since it's my own, I can see this app here, which is called the ML operations. And if I click here, you see all the deployments that I have running here, right? It's GPT-4, GPT-4 30K, and so on and so on. And here I have then the option to provide this to the prompt editor and or not providing. So if I'm a company in a security sector and I say, yeah, I don't want to send my data to GPT-4, I just use the Falcon, let's say, or any open source model that we host, and then I'm a bit more safe. Or I say, hey, I want the best model in the market. Obviously, it needs to be GPT-4. It's best in all benchmarks. So I will provide this to them. Or I give them all and they just select what works for them. Yeah, so that's that. And now you might question, okay, that's now really a lot about products, but what is the real value, right? That's where we're looking at. And for that, I can say that it's really great that with the Discovery Center, which we introduced with the reference architecture here, I want to highlight here the architecture catalog. And what we are providing here is a reference architecture, how SAP sees the whole RAG or retrieval augmented generation case in BTP. And for that, there's a complete reference architecture and even examples in GitHub that you can go through, even a programming code example that you just can carve out, use it in your own environment and test it. That's what we share here. But again, I'm just quickly going through the architecture because I guess in this round, architecture is quite interesting. So let me open up this picture here. So what we have here, more from the technical side. We have Generative AI Hub here, right? With AI Core, the API access to the LLMs and so on. Now you are connecting this to your SaaS application in BTP. Here we have data management, obviously. Then we have application service with AppLogic, which is sitting obviously there, LangChain, and so on. And for the RAG case, obviously, an vector engine is quite important. For that, we position HANA Vector Engine as earlier shared. And the idea here is then with the SaaS service here, being it multi-tenant or not, you're using the Generative AI Hub for either creating the embeddings or ultimately sending embeddings for context and getting good responses by the LLM. And this then boils then to the SAP UI5 component, obviously in front. So end users are working with the application clients from a desktop or mobile way. So overall, highlighting here this architecture, there is even in this GitHub example a use case You might argue, is it good use case or not? But here in this case, we just had the idea to showcase what is possible in an application setup with Gen AI. Here we have the idea of mails that comes into a company across the globe, and there are different languages in there. You have different sentiments in there, and all this can be assessed by the LLM. And to make it just easier for the service center to sift through and understand what the problems are. And for that, we have an automatic request type, which is classifying the content of the email by the LLM and having here a filter where you can sift through. So that's the idea. Obviously, then some indication like what is it medium urgency? What comes from the email? Is it calm? Is it someone is screaming or capsulated or whatever? So that's the overall idea, but this is just an example to showcase what is possible. More important is the actual code example for you to test and check, and also the multi-tenant way. So that's one thing that I would highlight to look at. At least me at least helped really to understand the overall picture. It's not just the technology from Gen AI Hub perspective, but bringing this really in the broader sense. Then maybe some other. Well, let me see on the timing. I guess I'm still fine. One final thing that I wanted to share. Discovery Center for me is the first thing that I go and to get my information and see also how to interact with this. So under services, you see AI Core and AI Launchpad. And if you now ask, okay, how can I get my hands on this? Bear with me. We are available with the new service plan in AI Core with the extended service plan. Not going into pricing details, that's not important. But just to share that with that, you have access then to Generative AI Hub. And I would then stop here and hand over or open up for questions.
Take it offline. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Hadi and I work very, very closely together, and so I can pass on the questions. But hopefully you got a view of the overview of the architecture, the data science, and now how you can see it for real. And this is something that you can play with, something that you can try out, something that you can integrate with your SAP environment in a safe way so that everything is still secure. And so thank you so much, Hadi. Let's give a round of applause for Hadi.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, Hadi. Have a great night. And for all of you here, our next session will start at 4:30. So our next session starting at 4:30. Thank you.